Ladies and gentlemen, 5 and 6 speeds alike, we are gathered here today because of a tragic loss. The life of a 6-speed transmission that was taken too soon, Junior. But I ask that we look forward with an attitude of positivity, because every part that breaks presents us with an opportunity to modify and improve. I'm just hoping that the next phase doesn't kill my bank account as well, because frankly it's more than I can afford, pal. In closing, I'd like to invite you to press F to pay respects. And we got drinks in the lobby, dudes. Redline MT90, Synchromax, and Motorcraft. Please consume responsibly. No burnouts leaving the parking lot. Come on, guys, let's be mature and double clutch like we should. I wish you all the best of luck with your future drivetrain projects. Alright guys, welcome to the Car Passion channel, welcome to 2018, my name's Greg Peters, and as if you wanted to hear any more bad news about the Miata, I got some more bad news about the Miata. The first 6-speed that I put in it only lasted about 1,200 miles. I got the car tuned, and within like 3 days, the transmission was done for. So I said, you know what? I'm just gonna chalk it up to experience. Found another 6-speed right away, swapped it in. I'm basically like a transmission swapping robot at this point. So I got the second one in there, and a couple days later, it's done for, even though I had the boost turned way down. So now I have 2 dead 6 speeds and a problem. What am I gonna do? So that's what I'm here to discuss with you. It's a little project update. I wanna go through with you what happened to these transmissions and what my plan is. Now, the failures that I was having are not typical to what you hear about when people's 6 speeds fail. 9 times out of 10, you hear about someone stripping the teeth off of 4th gear. I didn't strip the teeth off of anything because the car was still drivable. It started with the shifting becoming poor and the car was hard to get into gear while it was stopped. Now typically that's just a clutch bleeding problem, or maybe a new slave cylinder, new master cylinder, typically a clutch issue when you start having weird shifting problems like that. However, that developed into the car being in neutral with the engine running, and it would start creeping forwards. Now when the shifter's in neutral, it doesn't matter if you have a clutch issue or not, the car should not be moving because the front half of the transmission is disconnected from the back half, okay? The clutch has got nothing to do with it. And if I were to let the clutch out in neutral, there was so much resistance inside the transmission, the engine would die. That's with the shifter in neutral, the engine would die. And I knew that was a transmission problem. So it was probably not a good idea to keep driving it, but I kept driving it. On my way to work the next day, the rear wheels locked up going through an intersection. And lucky for me, they broke free and I was able to drive it home and put it on jack stands once again. But at that point, I knew 100% that it was a transmission failure. I just didn't know what could have caused it. But now I know, and I'm gonna show you. Arm day, bro. What I've got here is the counter shaft and the main shaft out of one of my failed 6-speeds. There are a couple things missing, but I don't need those to illustrate the problem. Let me set this aside real quick. So inside the transmission, some of the gears are free floating. You can see I can twist this main shaft here, and 1st and 2nd gear can float like this, okay? Now, if I engage 2nd gear, it becomes connected to the main shaft. That is back in neutral, and both gears spin freely again. This is the counter shaft, and in the Miata 6-speed, the counter shaft only houses the selector for 3rd and 4th gear. 3rd gear would normally go here, but I had removed it for diagnostic purposes. This is 4th gear. As you can see, it freely floats on the shaft, and the reason you need it to freely float is because, say your transmission is in neutral and you're at a stoplight. This counter shaft is spinning, but you don't want 4th gear to spin, so you need that free play. If I select 4th, it becomes part of the shaft. Let me remove this selector sleeve here. What this sleeve does is connect the hub to the engagement ring, which is connected to the gear. You can see the engagement ring and the gear both spin together. 4th gear separated slightly from this engagement ring. Now, if I just take this apart, take off that synchro ring, and now we're left with the most simple parts, just the hub and the gear itself. The engagement ring and the gear itself are 2 separate parts. They separated from each other, and it took up that necessary free play. Now with the car sitting in neutral, the countershaft is spinning, but it's dragging on 4th gear and it's making it slowly spin as well. This is 3rd gear. Notice how shiny and silver that surface is. This is 4th gear. See how it's got a heat ring on it and a little lip? And you can see this gouge mark on the hub because 4th gear was just grinding away on this hub. My theory as to why this happened is pretty simple. You can see how the teeth on all the gears are cut at an angle. That's called a helical cut. When you're in a gear and you apply power, depending on the direction of this cut, it's gonna try to pull the gears in opposite directions. So while 4th gear was locked in, the other counterpart to this gear was just pulling it away off of the engagement ring, and I think that's what caused these two parts to separate. See, they're just splined together, they're not one piece. And with the second transmission, I had the boost turn way down. The car was probably only making 300 horsepower, but another little side theory I have is the clutch I have is unsprung and it's very grabby and it has no give. So when you drop your car into 4th with an unsprung clutch and you let that bad boy go, there is no damping. So I think it could have loosened these two parts just from the shock load. And that's why you have to be careful with things like burnouts and wheel hop and clutch kicks, because it puts severe shock load on these gears, which is much higher stress than what your engine is putting out. Now, of course, this is just my theory based on what I found inside the transmission and what I know about the forces applied to helical gears, but I do know that 6-speeds have a problem where 4th gear becomes misaligned, and I think that is the reason for it. Now, my advice to anyone building a higher powered Miata with a 6-speed transmission is number 1, I would recommend a sprung hub clutch because it's easier on the transmission. Number 2, just be careful with 4th gear. You don't need to just bang the gears. If you got a high-powered Miata, you can shift a little easier to be nice to it. You're still gonna be plenty fast. Now, fun fact, in a 6-speed, 5th gear is the invincible gear. It's the hardest gear to break because the power is not being transferred through any gears at all. It just solidifies the main shaft and sends the power right into the diff. So 5th gear in a 6-speed, also the same for 4th gear in a 5-speed. You are not gonna break that unless you're putting down a ludicrous amount of power. That was just one of the things I learned by taking this transmission apart. Now, in the interim, I'm just gonna put my old faithful 5-speed back in the car so I can drive it because I still have some things to get dialed in before I can take it racing, and I'm tired of wasting time with the car sitting on jack stands. And I am not about to spend another $700 on a 6-speed to have it fail again. The 5-speeds are easy to find, they're very cheap. Until I figure out what transmission I'm gonna put in the car that will be bulletproof for my power level, the 5-speed will be fine. If you want to learn a little bit more in depth about what happened to the transmission, check out the link in the description. I've got some detailed pictures and a more specific write-up outlining exactly what happened. I know after the dyno day you guys are expecting all kinds of racing footage and driving and fun stuff, and I just kind of disappeared. Well, this is the reason I disappeared. I'm having some troubles, but I'm gonna get through it. We're gonna be back in action soon. I'm actually gonna put the 5-speed back in the car right now as soon as I finish this video, so I gotta get to work. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.